3, 2, 1. Mark, 1 minute till airtime on the LSU Sports Radio Network. Coming up, stations, your countdown until airtime will be your 30-second mark when the network will go silent. Stand by for your final 30-second mark until airtime. Coming in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Mark, 30 seconds until airtime on the LSU Sports Radio Network.
It's game week for LSU Fighting Tiger football. This is the Brian Kelly Press Conference, presented by the Louisiana Farm Bureau Federation. This week, the Tigers open the season on the road as LSU takes on Clemson in a Week 1 marquee matchup between the ACC and SEC.
As football coaches, we get excited, but I know our fan base is excited as well, and you're going to be excited about this football team.
Coming up, head coach Brian Kelly sets the tone for the Tigers this week and updates all things LSU football. But first, with a preview of this week's matchup from inside the Capital One studio at legendary Tiger Stadium, here are former Tiger Gordy Rush and the voice of your Fighting Tigers, Chris Blair.
Good Monday morning. It is game week indeed. Yes, it is the opening kickoff for 2025. And like always, there's a lot of excitement and a lot of buzz, and we're excited to get this week started. Coach Kelly going to join us up at the top of the hour from football operations. But right now, it's Gordy Rush and Chris Blair in the Capital One studio. And Gordy, it seems like I try to come up with something different to say every year for week number 1, but it kind of ends up being the same thing. Everybody is excited. Everything is at a fever pitch. I think there's a lot of hype around this team, deservedly so. Mm-hmm. And once again, for another opening game, the margin for error extremely tight as you're on the road to take on currently preseason number 4, the Clemson Tigers. But looking forward to this one.
I'm looking forward as well, Chris. Exciting year, getting a chance to get out to the practice field. This is a very good football team. There are a lot of new names out there. There's some old names that are now healthy, coming back for another year here of LSU football. And we've got a marquee matchup at Clemson. The Battle of the Tigers in Clemson Memorial Stadium should be a great game.
Yeah, expecting, obviously, capacity crowd. And you and I have had the opportunity to watch LSU during fall camp, and now that they started game 1 preparation a little earlier, as Coach Kelly said, than he normally does, which I think, for those of us who have been around since spring football, and really you can go back to early January, it's very palpable, the sense of urgency, for week 1, as I think it should be. But it's also a very challenging schedule. So I think they've done a lot of the work, as Coach Kelly told us last week on his radio show. It's hard to delineate between the end of last year and the start of this year. I mean, it started immediately as soon as we got done in Houston.
A lot of new faces, and you're trying to get this group to gel. And I think the challenge that you have going on the road this particular game is that Clemson and Dabo Swinney, a huge fan of continuity, and he was a guy the last couple of years was not really active in the transfer portal, and they were down a couple of years since we saw them last in 2019. They won the ACC title last year, made the college football playoffs, and he has a very strong nucleus, some continuity on that football team, and that's why they're one of the top 10 teams. And so I think for Coach Kelly, he realizes that, and he wanted to get, change up the mix-up a little bit. They introduced Clemson earlier. The last 2 Saturdays, they practice at night in Tiger Stadium to mimic the atmosphere he believes that they're going to see in Clemson. So this first game is bigger than most, simply because with the new college football playoff, as we saw last year, you've got to go 10-2. 10-2 gets you in. 9-3, you need help. So this non-conference game means a lot right off the bat.
Well, the good news, LSU also with a nice group to build around in returning. Starts obviously with Garrett Nussmeier at quarterback. But when you look around this team, and we'll talk about some of the transfers, certainly don't have the time today to cover it all. But when you're talking about LSU, you've got a good core on offense. You've got a really good core of playmakers on defense. And then you go look at the transfer portal, which, again, LSU tops in the country, according to most who follow this. I think the additions, as Coach Kelly said on Thursday night, it's not just about filling the roster. It's about filling needs with guys who have great experience. And so I think when you look at LSU and you've gone to practice, what is it that your biggest questions are about this team coming in? And what have you liked about what you've seen out there?
Yeah, what I've liked has been the addition of these transfer portal guys. A lot of players that have played significant snaps. And, Chris, they're very mature, and they're vocal leaders out there on the football field. That's one of the things I've really been impressed with. The wide receiver group. They went and got 3 transfer receivers, and they brought in an outstanding tight end, Bauer Sharp, and now Garrett Nussmeier has upgraded the weapons that he has surrounding him. And I think LSU added some quality and quantity to some very key positions. The defensive end, we'll talk about these guys as they go through the season. LSU now 3 deep, and they've got they brought in 3 players that have played a lot of football. They brought in some impactful defensive tackles. And Bernard Gooden, who has been one of the biggest headliners of the signing of the transfer class, but this defensive tackle from South Florida has been really, really disruptive. And then for me, it's a secondary. I mean, DBU starting to look like DBU again, an influx of outstanding new freshmen, and there are 5 kids actually out of the portal that, again, are bringing quality and quantity to the defensive backfield.
Again, coming up, we'll have Coach Brian Kelly from Football Operations right around 12 noon. He'll certainly set the tone, as we say, for the week, talk about the schedule for the Tigers, and then, of course, open it up to questions from the assembled media. Blake Baker, you and I both have been a big fan. We were fans when he was here at LSU first. We took notice of what he did at Missouri. Of course, we remember that game that Jaden Daniels up there in Como put the team on his shoulders there in the second half. But it's an aggressive style, and Coach Kelly mentioned it on Thursday. They went out by design to go get those type of players. And you mentioned with Kevin Peoples, the defensive edge coach, I think is one of the best in the country. And now he's got some real thoroughbreds that they brought in, along with guys who, even in the secondary last year,
right.
It's one of the upsides when you get to the following season, as some of those younger players had meaningful snaps in meaningful games.
And there's some players I think that are going to really contribute that played last year and got thrown in as freshmen and sophomore, first and second year players. Look, I think for Blake Baker, the key to me, besides the quantity and quality, is that they can now cover on the back end. They've upgraded the talent in the defensive secondary, meaning I can play man-to-man if I'm a defensive coordinator. So that gives me more options and more opportunity to bring pressure packages. And those are the things that he's been known for throughout his career. If I can cover behind and I'm not worried about it, and I have my Joes are as good as their Joes, then I can go ahead and bring some pressure. And so I think we're going to see Blake Baker do a lot of things on defense. He's got a lot of personnel, the mix and match. And that also means Mr. Harold Perkins Jr. I'm looking for him to have a big year, because no longer can an offense just look for where he is on the football field and run a double team. You've got a lot of folks to worry about besides Harold Perkins Jr.
Coach Kelly told me Thursday that he mentioned to Harold that during fall camp he looked like Mr. Perkins from his freshman year. He said, not Harold last year. He said, so we're going to stick with Perkins. I told him, I said, I'll just call him Perkins the rest of the year.
That's good with me.
If we get back to seeing what he did his freshman season. Real quickly, I know another question mark, obviously, the offensive line. I mean, you've got Garrett Nussmeier. You've got what I think are legit 8 SEC-style receivers that can play in this league at any given moment. So it all starts with the offensive line. You also have some experience at running back, obviously with Caden Durham coming in. He led the team in rushes last year as a true freshman. Caleb Jackson we're excited to see for his junior campaign. But it all starts at the offensive line, and you're replacing 2 good ones, really good ones. But one of the things I heard Coach Kelly say, and some of the other coaches I've been around, is that the sum of the parts for this offensive line may be an improvement. Again, it's hard to replace those type of anchors, but overall, with Braylon Moore coming in, kind of settling in at the center position, they feel like maybe they're going to be stronger right out of the gate in week 1.
Yeah, I think so. I think that they're too deep at every position, and now you have numbers. The first couple of years the Coach Kelly was here, if you remember that game against Florida State in the Superdome, they threw Will Campbell and all those young freshmen on the football field right away. You're not dependent necessarily on true freshmen, even though you have some competing for spots as a starter on that 2 deep line. Look, for me, I think it's a good mix of for kids that have been in the program. You mentioned Braylon Moore's played a lot of football at Virginia Tech. He's bulked up. Josh Thompson has a degree from Northwestern. He's played Big Ten football. He's going to bring some maturity to that line. And as we saw in the bowl game against Baylor, you have offensive linemen that look the part. It's just whether or not they're going to be able to gel together against a very good Clemson defense in week 1. I think this offensive line is going to be fine. Hopefully they can put it together and play as a cohesive unit against Clemson.
Well, I know Alex Atkins brought in. He's going to coach the tight ends, but he's also the running game coordinator. I've known Alex for a number of years. When I was at Georgia Southern, he was at Georgia Southern with Willie Fritz, and Georgia Southern led Division I football in rushing yards per game. So certainly, as Coach Kelly said, we want to be able to run the ball in the positions where we want to impose our will. So hopefully that is going to take place, and it will need to right out of the gate in week 1 against Clemson. Real quickly, do you think we'll see an improved running game from what you can tell?
I think so. I think there's more of a commitment to do it. I think you're in year 2 under Joe Sloan, and I thought that running game evolved. Right, evolved as the season went on, and they kind of fit the personnel that they had. But I think the biggest factor is that last year, other than Chris Hilton, you really didn't have a sub 4.5 40 guy. You had some undersized receivers. Kyron Lacey, God bless him, was a 4.65, 4.7 guy. And LSU could not stretch the field vertically. And if you can't stretch the field vertically, they're going to bring numbers in the box. And we saw that in week 1 when USC did it. And USC by no means was an elite defense. And you've got to be able to keep defenses honest. And I think because LSU has those weapons, they're going to have to respect them. And that should give respectable numbers, or numbers that you can win with up at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, it should be. Again, that wide receiver core, impressive with Aaron Anderson returning, Chris Hilton, who certainly has the ability to stretch the field. The addition of Nick Anderson from Oklahoma, that's kind of his bread and butter, is getting out there and leaving defensive backs in the dust. And Barryon Brown from Kentucky. So, again, a lot of reason for optimism. It'll be LSU and Clemson over at Frank Howard Field, Memorial Stadium in Clemson, South Carolina, just off the banks of beautiful Lake Hardwell. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll find out what Gordy knows about those Clemson Tigers as we lead you up to the top of the hour at 12 noon. It's the Brian Kelly Press Conference.
In Louisiana, we love our LSU Tigers. When the band strikes up those 4 iconic notes, the fans go wild. At Louisiana Blue, we're Tiger fans too. That's why we've teamed up with LSU Athletics to bring you the compassion of the cross and security of the shield, so you're free to wear your stripes and roar. Live Louisiana. We've got you. Louisiana Blue, Louisiana True.
Proud partner of LSU Athletics.
There was a time when a person's word was enough. A time when a handshake meant something, and integrity really mattered. For over 70 years, the values of Farm Bureau Insurance have been rooted in hard work, faith, and family. In that time, we've seen the world change in many ways. What hasn't wavered is Farm Bureau Insurance's commitment to protect our customers' way of life and serve the communities in which they live when they need us most. You deserve more. You deserve a promise. Learn more at lafarmbureau.com.
Every Tiger knows it's not just about where you are, it's about how you play the game. At LSU Online, we bring that same grit and greatness to your education. Whether you're watching from Baton Rouge or beyond, you can earn your degree on your time from anywhere. Flexible, online, built for Tiger Nation. Visit online.lsu.edu and win where you are.
Get ready, Tiger fans! Venture Global is proud to partner with LSU Athletics, powering Louisiana and the world with clean, low-cost, reliable energy and fueling the future of our great state. As we cheer on the Tigers this season, we're also driving innovation, creating jobs, and supporting our local communities. Together, we're building a brighter, more sustainable tomorrow. Venture Global, proud partner of LSU Athletics, powering champions on and off the field. Go Tigers!
Coming up, Coach Kelly addresses the media on this week's preparation. This is the Brian Kelly Press Conference, presented by the Louisiana Farm Bureau Federation. Here again are Gordy and Chris.
Coming up in just a few minutes, we'll go to the Football Operations Building, home of LSU football, and Coach Brian Kelly will have his first press conference in game week mode as LSU travels to take on Clemson on Saturday night. 6:30 is the scheduled kickoff Central Time. It'll actually be around 7:50 Eastern Time before boot meets ball, but haven't met a lot. In fact, this will be the first time either Clemson or LSU have played each other on campus. It's always been neutral sites, including the last time these two teams got together just down the road in the Big Easy in 2019 for the national championship, and of course LSU went on to win that one. And Gordy, you look at this Clemson team. Last year, they finished 10-4. They made it to the playoffs, bounced in Austin by Texas in that opening round. They had just one win over a ranked opponent. Now, again, as you said earlier, they've got a number of guys coming back. But, when I look at the numbers, and again, not just putting any doubts into how good they could be this year, but they're going to have to make some improvements as well. I mean, they were fourth, I think, in the ACC in offense, right, and around fourth in scoring defense. Their running back situation, they've converted a wide receiver to be the starting tailback, we're told, for this matchup. What do you see when you see Clemson?
Well, I see a team with a lot of continuity. And this is now finally playing Cade Klubnik so young in his career. This is his third year now at Clemson, where he is, obviously come into his own. And the good thing is that you have continuity in an era of college football, which is tough to find. Okay, I think the concerns for this team. Did they have enough playmakers around them offensively? They struggled in games against good opponents. They lost to Georgia 38-3 in the first game. South Carolina beat Clemson 17-14. They lost 38-24 to Texas. So they were not this offensive juggernaut when they got outside of the SEC. And defensively, they had good personnel. And obviously, Coach Sweeney wasn't happy with where they were. And he hired Tom Allen, defensive coordinator from Penn State, known for a lot of pressure packages. Before he went to join James Franklin at Penn State, he was the head coach at Indiana University. He was the 2020 National Coach of the Year and did a good job of getting Indiana above the 500 mark, which is an accomplishment in the basketball state. So, Allen it's going to be an interesting matchup, and I'm sure I'll get a chance to talk to Coach Kelly before the game about that, and that he's going to look at the film. He's going to see a new offensive lineman. He's going to see some of the problems that LSU had in protection last year. I mentioned they're going to bring a lot of pressure at Garrett Nussmeier.
All right. Well, one of the things Coach Kelly said, and it's funny you mentioned Tom Allen, he said, as they've been studying Clemson for months and months leading up to this game, they have watched Clemson's offense from last year and really the year before because, again, I think even though they've got returners on defense, including their top two tacklers from a year ago at the safety or linebacker position, defensively they were watching Penn State to get an idea of Tom Allen, but offensively with Klubnik coming back, and they had two talented freshmen a year ago at wide receiver. They were kind of a 1-2 punch. Yes. Klubnik's favorite targets. They're both back, and I believe Wesco and T.J. Moore, Antonio Williams also returning outside. And again, I think when you look at Clemson offensively, you got to wonder with this converted running back. Last year, their leading rusher moving on to the next level. Their second leading rusher suffered a horrible injury there in the first half against Texas in the playoffs. He's not expected to be back till maybe middle of this year. Again, we just talked about LSU wanting to be aggressive on defense. It'll be interesting to see if they force, again, if they can corral Klubnik, and we certainly know last year LSU had its struggles against dual-threat quarterbacks, but if they can, hem him in and force him to win this game on his arm, they got plenty of good receivers, but I got to believe that's the way they want to go.
Look, it becomes a football cliche. I mean, I think the team that has a better day running the football very well may win this game, and both teams are trying to find that. The difference, LSU obviously has a guy in Caden Durham that is very capable and proven. When he was healthy, he was phenomenal, and he had the hurt toe and played the rest of last year, but he's explosive as get out. The same for Clemson. They know what Blake Baker's bringing to the table. They've gone in and looked at all the films from Florida and Florida State and Nebraska and seen how a dominant player that A.J. Hawsey was at Houston and the cornerback Moore that came over from Virginia Tech. They've got talent galore over there. You can put two and two together. What's coming? Are we going to be able to run the ball enough to keep LSU honest, and so they're just not teeing off on Klubnik?
Again, it's the first time of this big marquee matchup that LSU is playing in a true road environment.
Yes.
Again, they'll be 83,000 strong. From what I'm told from LSU fans, most of the LSU contingency will be way up top there at Memorial Stadium. But obviously, Coach Kelly and company, they've been working on it. Anytime you go to practice, whether it was in the morning sessions or evening session, it gets loud over there. They intentionally set the scrimmages so far to be at night, so try to mimic those conditions. And it's awfully loud when they turn the stereo on 11 over here in our building at Tiger Stadium. What do you think from a player perspective? Does it matter? Do we make too much of the fact that this is a neutral site? Nope, this one's a true road site.
No, look, I think the road site, a game like this is better fit for a team like LSU that chooses to play in big crowds. I have a theory that I'd rather go play on the road where there's noise versus to go play at a stadium. And I go back to 1990 LSU. We played Vanderbilt at 11 o'clock, and there's an 11 o'clock game where you walk in and it's half full, and it's just not what you're used to. And all of a sudden at that point, you're not wound up. The excitement, the adrenaline's not flowing like it usually is. Now, look, it's hard to play on the road, and if things snowball on you, the crowd can play a part, and that's some of it. But I'd much rather go into something that's familiar than something that's not. And loud stadiums that you're used to and playing SEC football, it's familiar.
Again, it'll be LSU on the road taking on Clemson this coming Saturday night to kick off the season. Here in the Central Time Zone, it'll come your way with boot meeting ball around 6:50. If you're traveling to Clemson, South Carolina, we'll get it started around 7:50 Eastern Time. Waiting, Coach Kelly will be joining us from football operations any moment now. But, when I watch the preseason, talking season as we call it, once SEC Media Days begins, and then that void till we get to kickoff, it's interesting when you look at the SEC this year, because I have seen multiple people who cover college football and have for a long time be able to make some arguments for how tough this race is going to be for an SEC championship this year. I've seen so many different people make arguments for so many different teams that this is going to be their year. How do you see the SEC?
Same way. The era of 12-0 Alabama or somebody going 12-0 every year is over. And the era of Vanderbilt being 3-9 and everyone else being bottom feeders, it's over, because everybody, as Coach Kelly says, everybody has $18 million to spend on the roster, except Kentucky. They're going to spend a little bit more in basketball than everybody else, but everybody's got $18 million.
Maybe Arkansas, too.
Yeah, and so my point is that nobody is great, great. Nobody's really bad. And so every game's going to be a war. And two games people aren't talking about. I go back to LSU playing Vanderbilt at 11 o'clock. They're going to have to play that game in between South Carolina and Texas A&M. And Vanderbilt's got $18 million to spend on players. So they're going to be better. And Oklahoma, one of the storied blue bloods in college football, everybody's forgot about Oklahoma. They went 6-6 last year. They have that same difficult schedule. But they went out. They've got $18 million. Jim Nagy went to be the GM. He was with the Senior Bowl, and we got to go play up there at the end of the season in cold weather. That's going to be a ball game. So every week in this conference is going to be a war.
Yeah, you mentioned Oklahoma and you mentioned Vanderbilt. I mean, the other two teams that I think, at least on paper, people feel like will make a major step forward are two schools along with Vanderbilt and Oklahoma that are on LSU's schedule, and that's South Carolina and Florida. We'll wait and see, but they really think this, which I kind of feel like certainly momentum at times last year for Florida with the play of Lagway at quarterback. And then, of course, South Carolina, we know, with Lenore Sellers. But we get ready for Clemson and LSU. And, Gordy, I'll see you there in the upstate. Right now we're going to go, and here's Coach Brian Kelly.
I love that. Then I'm going to expect the same. I'm going to expect the same. I don't know if we're going to be able to get that. Especially from Matt. I mean, how are you going to – really? That's all we got? Oh, okay. The guys would like you. You're representing well. No, I wear little pads, but no, I know you're going to wear socks. All right. Great to be back. Obviously, it's game week. Everybody's excited. Excitement is a part of college football and passions. We've got a passionate fan base. They have high expectations. We have high expectations. But like I've said to you, we've been working on this since January. After our Baylor win, the bowl game, we went to work on our roster, our process in developing this football team, so that when we get to these moments, right, it's having a team that is confident, that plays the game the right way in a hostile environment. Many would say composure, maturity, and they've got to play with great competitiveness. Each and every play is going to be important for us. So, when you're putting together the DNA of a football team, it's not just about talent acquisition. It's making sure that you have the pieces necessary to compete in those moments, right? When there's a turnover, when there's sudden change, when momentum's not going your way, what's the makeup of your team? And so I like the makeup, but I want to have this conversation with you after the game, that we competed the right way, right? That our composure was amazing. And we played with great confidence. That's the post-game remarks that we want. But that's why we play the game. But my point being is that we've been at this and working at this and developing these things within our football team for the past 9 months. Now let's go play against a really good team on the road in what will be a very alive atmosphere, one that is difficult to duplicate. So you make sure you recruit the right guys. And this is a team that we were very intentional about in terms of going out and getting mature players that can stand up to those moments. So, look, I could give you a litany of things about who's ranked who and, what they say about them. It's about going out and playing. And all of this preparation needs to lead into the three things that I just mentioned in our performance. Again, we had some news that I'll update that you guys already know about. We awarded number 18 to Garrett Nussmeier. I like the fact that we've kind of centered back to the quarterback position because that's the history of 18. Started with Flint. And look, to me, I learn the history of this, every day, right? And to have Matt Mock as that guy is important to us, and being the quarterback and what he represents. It is Matt, right? Okay. I had a Mock play for me at Cincinnati, so sometimes I get the first names mixed up. But to have, Matt Mock and what he represented in 2003, coming out and leading to a championship and bringing it back to a quarterback, I think sends a great message about the history and tradition of 18. 7, Harold Perkins still wears number 7. Look, anybody could make an argument for 7 to go to somewhere else. And the great part about it is we had a lot of players on the team, but Harold didn't get a full year to wear 7. and he wants to finish it out. He wanted to wear 7. He wanted to have his best season in 7, and having it cut short last year, he gets the opportunity to wear 7. We named 2 captains, Garrett and Witt, Garrett Nussmeier and Witt Weeks. They represent both sides of the ball. We also will have 2 each and every week, 2 game day captains, because I believe we just have a lot of guys that have earned that opportunity. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of the background in terms of, where 18 started with Mock and now where it is with Nussmeier. And then 7, obviously, you can make the case for a number of guys that have their roots from the state of Louisiana as a playmaker. We just felt like it was right to have Harold finish off with 7 because he didn't get really the opportunity to do so. So that's a little bit of within our own program itself. Clemson, obviously, a top-ranked team. Whatever poll you're looking at, it's a top 5 team. They reached the CFP. I know Coach very well. 13 seasons at 10 wins. They're the epitome of consistency at the highest level. I think everybody talks about their defensive players in particular, but offensively, Cade Klubnik is, I think, a quarterback that played his best ball at the end of the year, and is a dual threat. 3 seasons as a starting quarterback, we've made a lot of that in terms of how important it is to come back for a second year. He's coming back for his 3rd year, which I think says a lot about him. Peter Woods, obviously a guy that we're going to have to deal with inside. Parker off the edge is going to require a lot of attention, or they're going to ruin your day. Offensively, I've mentioned Cade, who we have a lot of respect for, but a veteran offensive line coming back, playmakers on the outside. Williams and Wesco are outstanding receivers. So you guys already know that. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. This is going to be a great challenge, one that we're excited about, one that we're up for. Any goal that you put out there, it's not worthwhile unless it's a challenge. And so this will be a great challenge that our kids are excited about. So that's all I have. Excited to get going and get ready for Clemson. Questions?
Coach, right down here, you talked about bringing in the right guys, and we've talked about this all fall camp. Going into this game, having a center like Braylon Moore, who's played a lot, what does that do for the rest of your offensive line and kind of settling some things down? I know you guys have been working through some battles in fall camp.
Yeah, it does that. I mean, certainly the intentions here to get to the press conference that I want is that we brought in some veteran players that in this environment at Clemson, he's been through it. He opened up against Clemson last year as the starting center at Virginia Tech, So he knows what it's like to play against Woods. He's got that experience. So when you go on the road and you play in an environment like that, you want to bring in veteran guys that, bring that composure and leadership and experience, right? Experience is the greatest teacher. So that means a lot, clearly, that, he'll have a great influence on the offensive line.
I think we'll get the injury report Thursday. Is there anything that we need to know early in that regard?
No, I think, we had a couple of bumps and bruises, as most would, but I would think that at this point right now, as I stand in front of you, we expect everybody to be available to us.
You talked about competition and how good it was for your team. You had a couple of positions that felt like they were still, undecided, I guess. Is it important to shore that up, or are you going to use this last week all the way up into kick?
Yeah, I don't know that you always need a static 22. You don't want everybody in a position where you're rotating every single player. But there will be a couple of positions where we'll have some rotation, and I think it will be good for us. I think it makes us better. And so, we look at, different battles, right? We're going to play a number of defensive ends and defensive tackles. It's because we'll be better because of it. I think the same thing would be true on the offensive line. You're going to see more than just 5 guys out there. You'll see, at least 6 or 7, could be as many as 8 offensive linemen playing for us. Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's okay to rotate offensive linemen in. They can do that too.
Hey, Coach, unless you want to name a starter at that left guard spot right now, what is maybe one positive or what's kind of one strength of each of those three guys between Chester, Mabenga, and Eccles? And kind of what do you want to see this week from that group?
That's a good question. I think each one brings a little bit different. Paul actually moves very well for us, right? He can handle movements. He's been more consistent from that standpoint. DJ, you love the fact that he played so much football for you last year. He is in a new position if he is at the guard position from the center position, but we like his size, we like his smarts, we like his experience. And then with Cohen, he's physically strong. So if you get into a one-on-one matchup against an elite defensive tackle, he can hold his own physically. And so each one of them brings a little bit to the table, if you will, and that's why most likely you're going to see them all playing.
With how you approach the transfer portal, I know you've said in the past that you want to build through the high school ranks and then supplement with transfer guys. Was there a point where that kind of philosophy shifted for you this past offseason, or do you still want to get back to that, to where you're going into the portal sparingly?
I'll building a program, right, unfortunately takes some time. And the time element, nobody wants to hear about. I get it. I understand everybody's want to win the national championship this year. I want to win it as well. But the reality of it is we had some work to do. And that work was building a foundational piece in this program that was built on consistency and high standards on a day-to-day basis. And so that takes some time. We weren't ready to bring in guys from the outside until our own program was in a really good space. And so it took us a few years. And I felt like this year we were in a place where we could invite people into our locker room, transfers, if you will. So that's the long and short of it. I've been doing it for over 3 decades, and putting together teams every year is a little bit of art and a little bit of science. If it was just add water and stir, you don't need me, So I use my experience and my sense that when's the right time to add people to the roster, and I felt like this year was the right time. I thought we had the underpinnings of a program that was in a good place. There was some consistency being built. 19-2 at home over the last 3 years. There was some things to build off of with 3 bowl wins. No, that's not the national championship. I get it. But behind Alabama and Georgia, we've won more SEC games than anybody else. So there were enough things there for me to say, all right, we're moving in the right direction. Let's go get some veteran players that when you go on the road against Clemson, they've done that. And you don't have to go teach it from the sideline again. And so that's really where we are at. And where we'll move next year might be a little bit different. It might be extremely talented freshmen playing for the first time. And you live with some of the mistakes because they're incredibly talented. I don't know what the future holds. I'm focused on right now. I know it was a long answer, but I wanted to make sure it was clear.
Seeing them from afar, it appears that their run game is something that they're figuring out, right? What do you see in their run game, and how much, as you mentioned, does Cade factor into that? And do you need to be prepared?
He's I would say central to their run game. And look, I mean, you can go back to last year's Texas A&M game. We didn't handle ourselves very well, or the Alabama game, whoever you want to point out. South Carolina, I could keep going. I'd like to stop right there. We didn't do a very good job against a running quarterback. So it's important that we contain him within the run game. Look, he's going to do things outside the realm. That's what he does. He's really good at that. We got to keep him in the pocket and make him operate from the pocket. But their run game is certainly part of what they do. But, they've got a lot of things from an offensive standpoint that you have to defend, and there's only a few things you can do. You want to play fast. You want to play physical. You want to make sure that you don't give up the big shots. They like to get big shots down the field. And then you've got to stop the quarterback from really hurting you run the ball. That's kind of central to what we're looking at.
Brian, can you clarify on Garrett from Saturday? He didn't throw any passes. Why?
Yeah, when you get into the camp situation, we have I know it's not a great analogy, but we have a pitch count where we want to take our quarterback's load off, and all the installation was in, Matt. We were done with installation. So this was just more throwing. We wanted to wait and get into Clemson in game week. And so he'll be out there on Tuesday, practicing full.
And then opponent notwithstanding, how different, or do you feel differently about your team at this point coming out of camp week 1 than the previous 3?
Yeah, I think it's an evolution, right? Each year you're developing depth, you're developing a DNA within your team where you know much more about them in terms of what to expect. But I think at the end of the day, this is about depth and probably the most depth in the roster. Now, we still got to go out and play and perform at the highest level, but I would just say what's different is it's a mature group that has played a lot of football, and we're not going into a game where we can't handle the moment.
Coach, everyone's excited about the receivers and obviously how deep that room is. Without giving anything away, can we or should we expect to see more 12 personnel, especially against a front like Clemson has?
Yeah, I think you want to get your best players on the field, and we could probably put 5 receivers on the field and not have a running back there and say that those are your 5 best, right? But that's not really the way the game's played. You have to be tactical in what you do and matching up against what defenses do. So, yeah, 12 makes sense for us. Will we feature it from a percentage standpoint 80% of the time? Probably not, but I think it's going to have a good mix in what we do because it's smart to put Trey Green and Bauer Sharp on the field. If it wasn't smart, I'd probably stay away from 12 and be good somewhere else. So it's using your own personnel that you have. It's being tactical against your defense. And then it's trying to find that balance of how do you get those receivers on the field as well, because you're pulling one off the field when you go 12. So it's a little bit of everything.
Coach, you obviously mentioned how explosive their pass rush is. How has Caden Durham looked?
Did I mention that?
I think you did,
okay.
Yeah.
Good. I want to make sure I mention it again. It's explosive.
How has Caden Durham looked as a pass protector, sort of helping out, and what's his progress look like from last year?
Oh, yeah, we have a high standard, and you guys all know this that follow us. Josh Williams was, as good as there is, right? And so that actually left a really good standard for watching film and showing our backs, this is how you have to help in these kinds of situations when you're called on. But Caden does a really good job. I think Coach Wilson is, if there's one thing that he is really a stickler on, it's you got to protect. And if you want to get on the field, you can't be a liability there. And I think all those kids have done a nice job.
Hey, Coach, just simply, how much has your defense improved? I know you won't know until they get on the field and play, but your personnel that you've added, what you've seen in camp, how much better do you think they are?
I just think there's a lot of confidence back there. And so how do you measure confidence? It's just the way they handle themselves, the way they play. They believe in themselves. There's a trust factor that they're going to go make a play. I think it starts with confidence. Confidence comes from playing the game, Jacques, right? A lot of those guys that are back there now have played a lot of football. They're experienced players. And when you bring that experience forward, things like confidence come out, high competitive drive. So, look, we got to put it all together. Like, that's why there's great anticipation going into Saturday. But I think I have a trained eye as to what I'm looking at, and what I see more than anything else is a group that's very confident.
Brian, I really don't think we've had a chance to ask you about Gabe Relaford this preseason practice. What have you seen from him? I know when we visited with him in the spring, he talked about accepting the challenge once you guys brought in the 3 defensive ends. And what did you notice from him? How has he just sort of accepted that challenge?
I think that we're very pleased with the way he's accepted the challenge, right? He hasn't backed down from it. I think he's seen it as an opportunity for him to show that he's the best at that, instead of, well, woe's me, they brought in competition. I just think he's handled it with the right mindset. And because of that, he's improved. I mean, he's physical. I mean, he brings a physical presence at that position. And so now you add, Patrick, and, you add, a number of those guys, Pyburn, Jamari, Butler. I mean, it's a deep group of defensive ends. And Gabe has stood out because he's accepted the challenge more so than anything else.
Coach, as you know, we are on a 5-game losing streak for season openers.
I don't think in those terms. I think about this year.
Okay.
So what's going on this year is what I think about.
So you've been saying that you're very confident in this team. You've been working on consistency and everything. What are you expecting from the offense and the defense from this Saturday and to make it to the national
To play their very best. Those are my expectations. We put in a lot of time. As I said, we've been working on this since January. If we could just write in the score and know exactly what's going to happen, this would be pretty easy. But we've been with this group for 9 months, and I really like our team. I like the way that they have worked. Whatever we've asked them to do, they've done it. We're going to go out and compete, and we'll figure out what happens after that. But I'm proud of the guys and the way that they have looked at this challenge in front of them in winning and having a successful weekend. But other than that, we just kind of stay focused on our day-to-day process.
Hey, Coach, right over here to your left. The last several weeks, it really looks like over fall camp, you put a lot of stress on red zone, blue zone work, particularly on offense. Just what kind of strides have you seen maybe in the offense this year or this offseason that leads you to believe there's going to be some confidence that you guys are going to be able to score inside the 20, inside the 10 pretty consistently?
Well, you mentioned it as though we were not very good on offense last year. I thought we were pretty good. We needed to be better, right? We needed to be better, especially in those zones. So, when you have a veteran quarterback, and Garrett, a guy that can come back, you can be a lot more situational in your work. When you have a younger quarterback there or hasn't, had the experience, you want to make sure that you cover everything. So, as I mentioned earlier, in terms of, why we kind of were able to pull him out of some practices and keep him fresh is because he's seen a lot of that stuff. We actually wanted to do a lot of that work for our younger players too, and get both Michael and Colin a lot of work in that situational offense, which is crucial to winning games because that's where the points are scored. Big difference. We go back to the USC game, we kicked field goals instead of touchdowns. And that was obviously the difference in that game. So I'm not saying that we did more of that because of the USC game. I'm saying that we did that because of the younger quarterbacks, that we wanted that situational work for them. And obviously it's very important in your overall scheme of things.
Hey, Coach, you had mentioned that on your radio show that the roster cost about $18 million. I was wondering if you can approximate about just what the portal class, those 18 cost, if you could.
I'd have to look at my notes for that. I was commenting strictly on what the revenue share piece was going to be. I saw the revenue share piece because that's already been given to us. And then there was other money spent, obviously, through NIL and third party. But in terms of giving you the exact numbers, I'd have to sit down and pull it off a sheet in front of me, and I just don't have that in front of me.
You've had to supplement that DB room through the portal and high school recruiting, all that in recent years. I remember a couple of years ago that Denver induced class, you were asked what you thought they would be like, and you said, I just want to see them in games. I don't want to comment on it. I imagine you still want to see them, but you talk about a trained eye. What's your thought seeing guys like Halsey and Cooley and Mansour who have played a lot of football?
They have practiced. They have competed in the manner that we thought that they would. They attack every practice. They're our hardest workers. That, in my experience, has proven to be the differentiator between those guys that haven't played a lot of football and have. They show it in practice, too. They play with a swagger. I'll give you an example. They make plays in practice, and they're not doing the sword thing and, all that stuff. They're like, next play. Bring on the next play. And to me, those little nuances show I'm confident. It's kind of like the old adage, you hear it all the time. You get in the end zone, give the ball to the official that you expect to be there again instead of 18 different dances. Now, I'm not against any of that stuff. I don't want to sound like the old guy here that doesn't like excitement. But you asked a question, and I'm answering it based upon what I see. And what I see is when a guy does that and he hands it to the official, he truly believes he's coming back in the end zone. And so I see a lot of that on the field. Now, we got to go play. I get it. But in answering your question, those are the things I see. It's both. It just depends. I've got you locked up. It's also victory. It is a seatbelt for most of them. We have new ones now. You guys got to keep up. Yeah, no doubt.
Would you like to see the NCAA approve exhibition games for college, like one exhibition game, or approve, like in NFL, a shared scrimmage, because you can work out these kinks before you play a game like this? Would you like to see that approved?
I mean, I thought it was the rage, and now you see NFL teams backing out of them. Why are they backing out of them? Because they're really physical, and it puts your guys at risk. And, yeah, I know there's preseason games, but there's a lot of union work going on in those preseason games. I guess I'd have to think about it more to have a definitive answer. I think there's some things I do like about it, but sometimes you bring in another team and they have something that they want to prove against you, and they're not in the right emotional zone. They do some things that maybe put you at risk with your top guys. And so, again, I don't want to be that, hey, yes or no. I'd have to see more of it, and my initial feeling is we'd have to be very careful with it. Good? Thank you.
Coach Brian Kelly there with the first press conference of the year. And again, the Tigers get ready to take on Clemson coming up on Saturday. Again, it'll be a 6:50, we're told, by the time boot meets ball there between Clemson and LSU. Central Time, 7:50 Eastern Time. We'll take a quick break. We come back. We'll give you some news and notes and wrap it up on the Brian Kelly press conference.
All right. It's a beautiful day for football here at the stadium, and we're just about ready for kickoff. Score 0-0. And suddenly, I'm in the mood for a Coke Zero Sugar. Real Coke taste, zero sugar. Now that's a winning combo. Yeah, crisp, refreshing. That hits the spot. When it comes to great taste, Coke Zero Sugar's always on the scoreboard. Coke Zero Sugar. Real Coke taste, zero sugar.
There was a time when a person's word was enough. A time when a handshake meant something, and integrity really mattered. For over 70 years, the values of Farm Bureau Insurance have been rooted in hard work, faith, and family. In that time, we've seen the world change in many ways. What hasn't wavered is Farm Bureau Insurance's commitment to protect our customers' way of life and serve the communities in which they live when they need us most. You deserve more. You deserve a promise. Learn more at lafarmbureau.com.
And here's Heather with the weather.
Well, it's beautiful out there, sunny and 75, almost a little chilly in the shade. Now, let's get a read on the inside of your car. It is hot. You've only been parked a short time and it's already 99 degrees in there. Let's not leave children in the back seat while running errands. It only takes a few minutes for their body temperatures to rise, and that could be fatal.
Cars get hot, fast, and can be deadly. Never leave a child in a car. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
In the SEC, it just means more. But what is it exactly? It's the fans, the students, the traditions, the legends. It's passion to celebrate deeper, reach farther, think smarter, make an impact off the field. It's that intangible thing that happens when 16 schools raise the bar as one. Because in the SEC, it just means more.
That's a wrap on this week's Brian Kelly Press Conference, presented by the Louisiana Farm Bureau Federation. For last-minute news and notes, once again, here is Chris Blair.
Tigers open the season on the road against Clemson coming up on Saturday night. Be a 6:50 kickoff Central Time, 7:50 there in that mysterious Eastern Time zone. Later this week, get a scouting report on those Clemson Tigers with Hearing Voices, a podcast coming up. We'll talk to the voice of the Clemson Tigers, Don Munson. That'll come later this week on LSU Plus and wherever you find your audio podcast. Then on Thursday, it's the Brian Kelly Show. That one starts at 7 o'clock, live from TJ Ribs. Love to have you there. You can tune in all over the state and around the world, beginning at 7 o'clock on Thursday. Then, of course, coming up on Saturday, it is game day. We'll get things cranked up once again around 4:30 with LSU Game Day. Hunt Palmer and former Tigers Brandon Taylor and Marlon Favorite will set the table. Then Gordy Rush and Jacob Hester will join me from Frank Howard Field at Memorial Stadium there on the campus of Clemson for LSU and Clemson top 10 matchup, again with kickoff coming your way on the airwaves at 6:50. That'll wrap things up for us here. Join us again next week for the Brian Kelly Press Conference. My thanks to Gordy Rush. My thanks to you for tuning in. And until later this week, this is Chris Blair saying so long, everybody, and go Tigers.
This has been the Brian Kelly Press Conference, presented by the Louisiana Farm Bureau Federation. For the very latest on LSU Fighting Tiger football, follow the Tigers on social at LSU Football and at LSUsports.net.